Originally, this video was going to be exclusively talking about the evolution of air group markings in the US Navy. However, I found it difficult to talk about that without talking about everything else they changed too. So hopefully you like it. If we take a look at pre-war US naval aircraft, you'll find that they're very colorful. But what do all these colors mean? Starting from the front to the back, the color on the cowling would indicate their position in their squadron. A full color cowling would indicate the lead of the flight. Color on the bottom would mean that they're the left wingman, while a band on the top would mean they are the right wingman. Each squadron would have up to 6 different sections, each having different colors. Only lead flight, though, would receive a band on the fuselage. Occasionally, a unit marking would also appear near the canopy. However, it was not commonplace. As we move to the back, you'll notice code on the rear. The forwardmost number designates what squadron it belongs to, as well as in the pre-war days, what carrier. The letter here also represents the role that they played. B would mean bomber, F would mean fighter, S is scout, SB, scout bomber, T torpedo, P patrol. The last number being their aircraft number within the squadron. In the later war years, sometimes a letter would prefix the code, indicating that it was a land-based plane and what naval air station it was stationed at. On an interesting side note, I found that the V in VF stood for heavier than air, because at the time, the Navy operated airships. And of course, the Marines would add an M in from the VF that stood for Marine Corps. The tail colors would also be designated to what carrier they'd stationed on. Yellow would equal Lexington, white would equal Saratoga, green, Ranger, red, Yorktown, blue, Enterprise, and a black tail would signify that they were stationed on USS Wasp. While national insignia was always present on the upper and lower wings, it wouldn't be till March of 40 where they would add it to the fuselage. In the early years, it would be placed on the cowling, as that was seen as the most visible place on any aircraft. Late 1940, the Navy would paint their aircraft in a light gall gray, also known as neutrality gray. However, the gray would not last long, as by early 1941, the Navy ordered all aircraft to be painted in the more iconic blue over gray scheme. In that same order, all aircraft codes were ordered to be painted black. However, not all squadrons followed this, most famously Lexington's Torpedo Squadron. During the war, the U.S. Navy as well as the U.S. Army Air Force would jointly change national insignia as well as size and location multiple times in the early years, leading to variation amongst aircraft. Most notably, removing the meatball from the national insignia in May of 42, right before Midway. And then again, they would change it in 43 by adding red bars and red around the insignia. However, many higher-ups did not like the red, and by late 43, it was deleted. There would be a few variations amongst the insignia. For Operation Torch, the British were worried about friendly fire, so the U.S. Navy added a yellow border around the insignia to replicate the British rondelle. And for aircraft that were all sea blue in the late war, markings would be all white. With these changes in insignia comes changes in paints. In early 1943, the U.S. Navy ordered aircraft once again be repainted with the tricolor scheme. And then again, one last time in 1944, ordering fighter and patrol craft to be painted in sea blue. Over in the Atlantic, there was not much change to the paints. In the early year, the blue over gray scheme was used. However, given the different conditions of the Atlantic, the paint was not useful. And this was well known by the U.S. Navy. The Atlantic scheme would be the same in principle as the Pacific scheme, but just with gray and white instead of blue and gray. Over the years, the positions of the paints would change slightly, as well as slight variations in the color mixture. I couldn't find any data on what change was made, but I would assume it would have been late 42, early 43. Back to what this video was originally intended to talk about, their grouping markings in the Navy. In 1943, VF-5 from USS Yorktown CV-10 would be the first to use them. They would use a white slash, sometimes seen with a K, on the tail. It slowly caught on, and crews from all ships started to use air group markings. However, with no regulation on them, there was a great variety in the markings, ranging from shapes to numbers to letters to sometimes just even colors. Even amongst the same air crew on the same ship, there would be different markings. In the case of USS Princeton's fighter squadron, VF-27, they would take it up a notch and paint the very distinguishable angry cat face, which was a hit amongst the crew. This was a perfect segue into the fact that not all officers liked these things. In the Navy, especially the Marine Corps, your aircraft was seen as property of the U.S. Navy and a tool you were issued, not your personal canvas to do whatever you want with. Unfortunately, when Princeton was lost at Leyte Gulf, VF-27 was reassigned, and their new CO was not a fan of the nose art and was ordered to repaint them quickly. By 1945, the Navy had a system put in place of different symbols that were exclusive to the carrier. But the problems weren't done there. While the different shapes are cool, pilots had a difficult time describing them, and as you would imagine, in a profession where precise communication is life or death, a change had to be made. By June of 45, each carrier was given a letter instead of a shape. However, I should add here that it doesn't appear that all followed suit with this order. It would appear all the fleet carriers did, but not all of the light carriers nor escort carriers. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you liked this video. I think the next one should be on flight deck markings, because that's pretty cool, I think. Either that or a continuation of these markings leading up into present day. So yeah, hopefully you guys like it. See you in the next video, and peace.